everybody, and welcome back to Laughter and Livestock. We're here again at the Shoot and See Ranch. We've got Badger and Morgan in front of me. I've got the lovely view of the farm behind me. Today I figured I'd kind of talk to y'all about why I chose to get into homesteading and kind of my reasonings and my thought process, and I apologize if I'm a little all over the place. I do very much have trouble keeping on a linear track. I'm in the same clothes as my bake goat treats with me video due to, oh, it's a bunny, due to the fact that I'm filming this on the same day. I figured I'd get a 2-for-1 done while my little bit was asleep, and that way we can have the avoidable incident of not being able to upload every Thursday. That is my ultimate goal here, is consistent uploads every Thursday, and hopefully every once in a while another video a week. 2 max, probably. I do have to do some editing, but bear with me. So like I said, today I'd like to talk about kind of why I got into homesteading, and that story really just kind of starts about 3 years ago. I used to live in San Diego, California. I moved around a lot, and this was years back, not 3 years ago, but years back. Before I even met my husband, I lived in San Diego, and we lived up in Descanso in the mountains and the hills, and it was beautiful. And my mother was the one that originally kind of turned me on to the homesteading thing. She was the one that started the research of the connection between preservatives and behavioral issues, and especially in kids with stuff like Asperger's. My brother Sean, oh my goodness, Morgan. My brother Sean was diagnosed and had quite a few things going on, and my mother was determined to help him. He struggled a lot, and my mom was finding that certain foods would trigger certain reactions, especially stuff like dyes. So you fast forward that a good couple of years, I've met my husband. We're not quite married yet, and we are struggling. We are struggling hardcore. We both lost our jobs at the same time within a matter of weeks. Another perspective change. All right. So we lost our jobs both around the same time. This is at the end of COVID, where everything was, getting better, but it was still so hard to keep a job. And I mean, it was, somehow we had both managed to find ourselves in companies that were doing layoffs because they could no longer afford to pay people. And it was rough. We lost our apartment, and that wasn't even really due to money. That was a jerk of a landlord that wanted to renovate the apartments and was booting us out. Either way, my mother-in-law graciously offered us the spare bedroom in her home and moved all of her scrapbooking stuff out and all of her office stuff out in order to make space for me and my now husband. I truly appreciated that, and I do to this day. We lived there. We're now married, and we finally got kind of back on our feet. We got our jobs, and we've been doing really well. And then I got pregnant. So now we fast forward another 9 months. We have a beautiful, healthy baby boy. We've named him Wyatt due to the fact that I am distantly related to the Wyatt Earp, and I wanted a strong boy name for our little dude. And so, I mean, Wyatt. I wanted something a little more common than my name, but not so common that there'd be 13 of them in one classroom. And something that he could find on a keychain. Those of you who have really unique names will understand. Sometimes you just want to find your name on a freaking gas station keychain. And so we had him, and I was breastfeeding, and I found out that he would have certain aversions to things that I ate. And so I went on the lactose-free diet, I went on a gluten-free diet, I went on everything. and I was starving all of the time. But when I stopped eating certain things, his stomach would feel better, and he was already an extraordinarily colicky baby. I mean, he never stopped. And now we fast forward again, and he's 2. Well, we started noticing fairly early that he too would have reactions to food. When we looked more into the food, we found out things like dyes. And we started doing the research and finding out that red dye 40 was having an effect on a whole lot of people. It wasn't just our family. It's a lot of people have come forward and been like, I don't know what it is about this, but it is disrupting our system. It makes our children moody. It makes them impossible to console. It makes them cranky. They don't want to go down. I mean, numerous things, they go on a what feels like a sugar high for 2 days, and then they crash out hard. And we started noticing the same thing within Wyatt of he would go absolutely bonkers on red dye 40, and there was no way you were going to be able to make that kid go down. And there's just no way you were gonna make that kid go down. So we started switching off the red dyes. Well, then I was doing more and more, and I was realizing, it may not just be the dyes. It could be stuff like preservatives, and going down that rabbit trail of what all is going into our food and our systems, and how disruptive it can be on a daily basis. It like I said, it really rabbit trailed down to maybe we need to start making our own food in our own way. I mean, so we know that exactly what was going into our food, and then we just kind of layered it a little more to, okay, well, now we know that my mother-in-law is celiac. I mean, she can't have gluten at all, and it'll hospitalize her to certain extents. If she has enough gluten in her system, it can nearly, if not absolutely, hospitalize her. And we're like, okay, food is a huge deal to any household, but now we're on high alert with food in ours. We're like, okay, yeah, something needs to change. So we start looking into it more, and we're like, okay, you know what? Let's get started on this project. And so I started sourdough, and that was the first thing. Is I was like, bread, something as simple as bread, something that people have made for thousands of years with nothing but water, flour, and salt, now has an ingredients list that's as big as your hand. What is going on? And then you have bread, like you see the TikTok videos all of the time where there's people with bread and they crunch it up as far as they can crunch it up into, and then they let go and it just expands right back into the perfect piece of bread. And I'm like, that doesn't seem right. That seems absurd. And that could just be bread, but that doesn't seem... That's scary to me. And then you have the commercials where it's like, oh yeah, I let a McDonald's burger sit in my room for 3 years on a plate, and it didn't mold. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, how many preservatives went into that to keep it that way? And so we rabbit trailed even further. So that was when I finally decided, all right, it's enough. Enough is enough. We are working on getting some cows, and see, our nanny and granddad up the hill, they already run their own cattle, but I've never been one to cut corners, and I truly believe that if I'm going to do this, I need to do this accurately. And so I plan on asking them, hey, is it okay if I buy 1 or 2 cows to butcher later on in the year and just kind of run them with your pack? And I mean, I can keep up with it if you need me to. And I have no doubt that they'll say okay. And or we can put them in this little pasture right back here, because this pasture is separate from the big pasture all the way in the back. but all the pasture to my right, the pasture behind that, and the pasture behind me are all connected right about here in the center down this hill by a tank. And it's a man-made pond, essentially, for watering your livestock. And all 4 fences kind of intersect into the middle of that tank. So we absolutely could run a little head of cattle a little head of cattle in this back. Our pasture would absolutely be able to support it. So I have no doubt that they would be so allowing of that, if not absolutely support it, because that is something that they do as well. I figured to start with we should get goats, as they're kind of a staple of any homesteading property, as once you get goats, you have access, hi Morgan, to things like meat. If you don't like them, you know, when you're a step away from being you're not a very good pet, you know, you tend to end up on the chopping block. For these guys, sadly, it's pretty literal. But it also means that they had the honor of feeding my family. Oh my goodness, Morgan. So I'm more than okay with that sacrifice. I'm sure they're a little less thrilled about that idea, but at the same time, I truly believe that animals are not scared of death. They don't necessarily think the way we do, where it's this big bad scary thing. Well, that was odd. Oh, do you need a treat? Here, we'll show them. Here, right here. So, it's one of those things where I'm more than happy to treat these guys and give them their best lives. Feed them some of the goat treats. And they do me the honor of feeding my family. And something about that is truly amazing. And we'll give that to Morgan. My ultimate goal is to have cows, chickens, ducks, and goats. Goats for their ability to not only give you meat and give you companions, but for the milk as well. Because when you get into it, of course, you have not only milk, but you have butter, you have heavy cream, you have soaps, you have lotions. So much can be done with just one little miracle liquid. And that kind of brings me into, it leads a little bit out of the why and into more of my thoughts on it, of just, I honestly believe that it is beautiful to rekindle a relationship with nature. I believe that is your truest self. And to be able to go back into nature and feed yourself off of nature, and in turn feed yourself back to nature and give back to nature, is a beautiful codependent relationship. Because we live in a world where a lot of people have a take mindset and not a lot of give. And I didn't want to raise my kiddo with that mindset. I wanted to raise him with a very open-minded mindset. I wanted him to absolutely believe in the healing power of ashwagandha and something as simple as dandelion root. You know, how you have garlic. Garlic is such a superfood, and so many people don't even realize it. Where it's an antibiotic, it's not an antibiotic, it might be an antibiotic, it's an anti-inflammatory. Well, then you have so many other things where just going mostly organic, you are doing so much to save your mind and your body. And it's truly just an amazing thing to think about, of just how instead of Tylenol, you can make yourself an herbal tea. And, you know, maybe one of these days I'll make a video on that, of some of the herbal remedies I myself use that do, I know for a fact, work on, like, fevers, the inability to sleep. I mean, there's a reason there's so many different brands of chamomile tea on the shelves. And I mean, it's not just because people like chamomile tea. It's because the originators of this land knew that certain flowers will help. Knew that as much as nature will give, she can take, and as much as she can take, she can absolutely give. And it's, like I said, it's a beautiful, beautiful codependent relationship. But it's kind of like a little bit of a ramble there. I don't really know where I went with that. But it's kind of, my mindset on it, my thought process was, if I can go back and give my kid the ability to truly think for himself and decide, not necessarily, you know, that all doctors are bad. I'm not saying that. You know, if you need heart surgery, you're not going to be like, here, take this tea. You know, you're going to go get heart surgery. But I'm also saying that I would love to give my kid a tea to reduce his fevers and his cramps and, you know, his tummy aches, instead of giving him more pharmaceuticals. I do believe, and it's a little bit of the conspiracy theorist in me, that there is something big and something wrong with Big Pharma. Do I know what it is? Absolutely not, but I don't trust in it at all. I don't have any faith in big governments, and I don't trust that anybody in a position of power truly wants what's best. It's a disturbing thought to know how many people have been caught in positions of power severely neglecting their power. It was, ooh, that's a red wasp. Okay, he's gone. A little blooper there. But it's a miracle to me how many people have been caught in positions of power severely neglecting their power, and it almost seems like nothing ever gets done about it. You know, it's a slap on the wrist. My ultimate goal is to have shelves set up in my garage, with canned eggs, canned duck eggs, canned jellies, canned jams, canned fruits, canned veggies. I mean, so self-sustainable. I know that I can walk out into my garage, grab something off the shelf, and have dinner that very night from something that I might have grown 2 years ago. And something about that is so rewarding of a thought to me. And I would absolutely love to have the ability to do that. And that is what my ultimate goal is, and what I'm working towards, is the ability to not only do that for my family, but to do for others. I would love to give back to my little community in this little town, and be able to help others not only learn the canning traditions and learn how to be self-sustainable on their own, but to give to those who no longer can. I mean, we have a huge elderly population in this town, and I know some of them would absolutely love to have their own homemade jellies and jams again. We even have a lady here in town that does her own beehives, and I would love to do that one day, because I am a big believer in hard work is rewarding. If you put in the work, you will be rewarded. And sometimes it has been a bust, but I don't believe it's because you shouldn't have tried. I believe it's because you needed to try a different path. you get so many pairs of shoes, and sometimes they burn out while walking down a path. And I honestly believe that it's not because you got a bad pair of shoes, but it's because you needed to go down a different path. And this was my burnout. This was my little bit of my mental breaking point. And why I chose to go into homesteading was because I needed to be at peace with myself. And I needed to be at peace with the world. And I no longer wished for the rustle and the bustle of city life, and I wanted something quiet and peaceful. And I feel like a lot of people do end up reaching that position sometime in their lives. I just hit mine a little earlier. So now I am 23 years old. I am sitting in a bucket in the middle of a field. I've got 2 goats, 2 dogs, with plans on getting so many more farm animals. I have a beautiful 2-year-old son who's learning how to feed his goats and feed his dogs, and he feeds the chickens in the neighborhood, and he absolutely adores it. And all in all, to say the too long didn't listen version of this is, I got into homesteading because I wanted to be self-sustainable and I wanted to be ungovernable. And sure, that's gonna sound so conspiracy theory, so much like a conspiracy theory, but it's mostly just because I have a problem with positions of power that like to abuse it. I have a problem with authority, if you will. And thirdly, my last reasoning is I just think it's fun. I love animals, I love nature. And honestly, nothing is more fun than watching my little boy wake up at 8 a.m. with a smile on his face, beaming at me as big as his little face can beam, going, "Mama, it's time to feed the goats." And I am so proud of his work ethic already. And I hope, and I know it'll change, but I hope that some part of him never does. Anyways, thank you guys for listening to my 20 some odd minute rant, I'm sure it is at this point. I really appreciate those who have stayed tuned in to the channel, those who have subscribed just to give me a boost. The 3 of you that know will know. Hi, Morgan. I really appreciate those who have chosen to stay and listen, those who have even just clicked onto the video and clicked off. I really don't know what to say. I am incredibly grateful for the opportunity to be given this blessing, and I choose not to squander it, and I hope that y'all don't squander your blessings either. Take everything and every step in the day with grace and with pride. Another day that you're on the earth, and another day that you can make a positive change in yourself or in others. And with that note, we'll be signing off. Morgan says bye, Badger says bye, and I say see you next time. Toodles.